Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Arendt. I am well known throughout the industry for my position on compliance and regulation. I have been in the industry since late 2015. Prior to that, I was an expert and came from the tequila industry. Tequila and cannabis kind of go hand in hand, don't they? My background is in private and white label, production of new brands, and the concept of brand to shelf strategies. I am the Human Resources Director for BH Private Label in Daytona, Florida. I am also Chief Compliance Officer for Cannabidiol Life. I'm going to allow each panelist approximately 90 seconds to give their shameless self-promotion and tell you who they are and why they're sitting on this panel. And then we're going to roll into a series of questions with regard to branding and marketing because they are not one and the same. So let's start. Ladies first. Take it away, Luna.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for being here. My name is Luna Stour. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for iSpire. We're a cartridge manufacturer, hardware manufacturer, and do private label packaging and stuff like that for the cannabis industry, specifically for cannabinoids like D8 that are a little bit more viscous. I am one of the founding members of Jetty Extracts. If anyone knows California cannabis, we're one of the first to market in the vape space in 2013-14. I come from the Bay Area. I'm born and raised there. I've been smoking, selling, and growing weed since 1996 when Prop 215 passed. I was in middle school, so this is a lifelong pursuit. It helped put me through my undergrad and grad school. My career is actually in teaching. I got my degree in teaching from USF and really focused on urban education and activism and social justice, which really works well in the cannabis space. So I'm here and available for questions for anyone, obviously during the panel and then afterwards as well. I'm really, really happy to be here. So thank you guys for coming.
David.
My name is David Hyde. I worked in the marketing department at Extract Lab, which is a supercritical CO2 manufacturer. They also started Namaji, which is a 36,000 square foot hemp processing facility. I was there at the start of a brand launch of Holis, which is one of their white label products. I currently do consulting for Phytophile, which is based out of Long Beach in California. I welcome any type of questions or inquiries. Please feel free to contact me or reach out.
Scott.
I'm Scott Callahan from Magic Buzz and Collective Hemp Brands. I've got many of the dog years in the industry from back in 2012, 2013. Started in the THC space, created some brands there, architected the Organa Brands launch of Open Vape and 3 other brands in the cannabis space, in the marijuana space. We've done CBD business in the United States, Europe, UK, South America, transitioned into the CBD space about 2015. And have just basically ridden the roller coaster up and down and sideways in the industry. Many of you, if you've participated for very long, you have as well. So I've got battle scars to prove it and happy to share anything that I can help you avoid getting them yourself.
My name is Eric White. I'm CEO at Right Brands. We have 3 brands right now that I manage. One is Moksha Chocolate, the other is Right CBD. The third is Light, which is a CBD pre-roll. Previous to being there, I ran sales at CB Distillery for a couple of years, launched products into Albertsons, Ulta, TJ Maxx, and so forth. Been in the industry overall for 6 years. I too have a lot of battle scars. I can give a lot of advice on what not to do if you're interested, and who not to trust.
Yeah, we look out for each other in this space for sure.
Before I roll into this, I'll clarify that if you're looking for professional information, leaders in the industry, and you're looking for guides, look to the panels that you're sitting in on because we all come from a different perspective, but we are all leaders and have survived the first 6 years or 7 years of this. And let me just tell you, we got the war wounds to prove it. So let's move ahead. According to Consumer Guide, most recent survey, in the United States, we identify that there are more than 3,800 brands in the market under CBD. It does not distinguish between pure CBD, i.e. isolate, full spectrum, or broad spectrum. However, in light of this, the takeaway here is branding distinction. What identifies a brand and distinguishes it from another Are there considerations that should be made when defining the brand from the logo to color palettes and logo? What is important for shelf space? Eric?
Thank you, Jessica. I'll dive right in. Yeah, I think your first point is very valid, right? Your logo is very different than your brand. Your brand is a living, breathing thing. And your brand is a function of who your target market is, how it's going to make them feel. You know, when you think about brands, I think the biggest problem in the CBD space is everyone's selling a product. And the tincture is great, right? But that's why you can't distinguish between any of the top 20 brands. If you walk down the street in any town USA and ask them to name 3 CBD brands, they're going to look at you with crossed eyes. They just can't, because no one's distinguished themselves, right? And so I think to the point, the challenge is, how do you elevate your brand from being beyond just the product? When I think of Diet Coke, it's not just a beverage. There's a feeling that it evokes, right? Pepsi's different than Coke. Why? Right. It's the same beverage. It's just carbonated water with sugar, but
Yeah, there's numerous ways to attack it. I mean, Eric's doing it with a very value-conscious play. I have this brand here, Magic Buzz. This really plays on a lifestyle, a nostalgia for the kind of 60s, 70s hippie era. It's got a restored VW van. It's really, really cool. And it gives you a reason to, like, I want to wear the hat. I want to hold this in my hand. This is obviously in the same form factor as a 5-hour energy. So you clearly understand that's an energy shot. What you don't see from 5-hour energy is you don't see people carrying them around like they do a Red Bull, right? Red Bull is a status symbol. You carry that around. You want people to see you got it in your hand. We're sort of trying to find that middle ground in a smaller form factor, that where you can carry around, as a 5-hour energy, it sits in your pocket and you slam it as a truck driver or as an office worker. It's kind of like a hidden little secret stash of energy that you've got. In this particular brand, we're going after a lifestyle play. Eric's value play is very strong, particularly in a space where your average consumer feels like CBD is overpriced. There's no question about it. You can also do you can create brands that have sort of physician-inspired formulations, something like that has doctor certified stamped on it. More innovative formulations. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to tackle it, but I think you have to have an end consumer in mind, because as you build that graphics package and the packaging, and to Jessica's point, what makes it come up? What gets you shelf space? So a lot of what gets you shelf space is something that has shelf presence. Like another bottle, 30-count bottle of soft gels in a kind of natural setting packaging is not going to get you shelf space, because 1,200 to 1,300 brands have that form factor and that shelf, the shelf presence, the package that you put on the shelf. So I think you have to find something that's, if you're doing one brand, you have to just get really narrow, really passionate, and really enthusiastic, and create something that's differentiated, because, as we'll probably talk about soon, as you market that brand, the package itself is not the brand. There's a lot more to it. So you start there. You build out something that you can feel comfortable over the long haul marketing and pumping a bunch of money into, because you're never going to know where those marketing dollars, just which are the most effective. And then you just I think just stick with it. It's going to be a roller coaster, but I think I'll just stop.
Thank you.
I'm out of wind, believe it or not.
After half a decade of mainstream integration, CBD products are gaining shelf space at record rates. I've seen products lining the shelves of Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, CVS and Walgreens, Ulta, TJ Maxx, the local gas stations, and convenience stores. I've even seen it now on Groupon. Do all brands and branding fit all models of retail, and how does it work determining the product shelf strategy from a brand perspective?
I mean, I think it goes back to that consciousness about the end consumer. I think that people kind of build backwards in their brand planning of what they want and what speaks to them. Luckily with CBD, it's a lot easier than with us in California cannabis, where it's super specific. More, you can cast a little bit of a wider net with who your market is. But I think a huge thing is, are you going to sell on Amazon? If you're selling on Amazon versus selling into a CVS, those shelves, like you might not even need a box, or certain stores really want a small footprint because they're tiny stores and they want to have a large variety, or there's other boutiques that have tons of space and they only want to feature a couple that have large boxes. So really it takes a lot of research. There's no one size fits all. I think something that people miss in branding and marketing a lot with the shelf space thing is, also keeping in mind when we're doing this, like having some kind of a case study or a person in mind that has an age, an income level, just like these types of people, like 3 of them, and you have a photo of them on the wall, what they like to eat, where they live, what kind of job they have. And every time you're making any move in the company, you should say, how does this impact Luna, 36 years old, this income, this type of lifestyle, this kind of education, this kind of shopping versus someone else over here, an older male who's white with an affluent, or a younger, African-American working class person or something like that. That's like, who are the types? And then every time you match it, like, does that match with John? Does that match with Luna? And because sometimes we get so into what we want to do that we forget who's actually accessing it. And that can really change form factor, colors. And another thing I'll add to that, we were working with Green Lane, which is a big distributor of CBD products, as Jetty CBD, when we went into that space. And one of the things that we had was there's actually ways to track, I forget what they're called, but it's basically like psychology related apps that will track your eyes. So they'll put a packaging image and they'll do market research, and the computer will track where the eye looks first, and they iterate out this kind of data that tells you the upper left-hand corner is where 80% of people look. 50% of the people liked the teal versus the blue. So really dive deep into that. It wasn't that much of a push for us to do that kind of information, but figuring that out changed our entire packaging. And same thing for display cases, right? If you're trying to think of different point of sale display boxes and things like that. How are people engaging them? Are they right on the counter? Are they behind the counter? Like with us, we're in dispensaries. We don't get the beauty of packaging. It's held behind, a counter. So CBD has a lot more flexibility. We can't do direct to consumer, so we can't cut out the box. It has to sit. We can't just sell the bottle and mail it via, USPS. So I think that it really goes deep into, we talked about this on an earlier panel, like do more than you think you need to in the front end of building into your brand, because all of these things, when you're down the line, like he was saying about when you start marketing and start bringing it to life, you're going to have the stronger the foundation, the easier all of those functions will be.
Yeah, I'd add to that. If you know who your customers are, you know where they shop. Mm-hmm. My customer is Cindy from Ohio, right? And when you look at the CBD landscape in general, there are brands that are kind of built for certain retail channels. Hemp Bombs is a product, good, bad, and different. It is marketed to the gas station channel, right? The convenience channel. If you think about Monster, Rockstar, just the colors they use, think about gas stations in general, Circle K. It's primarily primary colors, red and green, because 80% of sales in that channel come from men. You go to Albertsons, Safeway, 70% of sales come from women. They're 48 years old. So you're kind of positioning your brand. You have to know where you're going to sell. Like you can't sell at Neiman Marcus and Dollar General. Right. It's just not going to work.
You could, but you'd have to have 2 separate lines, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I was at CB Distillery, we launched a line in Ulta. And then the TJ Maxx buyer came calling. And at that time, we were hungry for sales. Like, oh, yeah, we're in TJ Maxx. The Ulta buyer lost her effing mind. Right. Because now you have a product that's sitting on the shelf in Ulta at a high price point, and they're also moving units at TJ Maxx in 500. Like it was our own fault. But when you're young, starting out, you're like, oh, any placement's good placement, and that's actually not the case.
Right. It can degrade the brand.
It can actually hurt your brand. David.
Yeah.
Now we've moved past branding. We've got a logo. We've got our brand. We've got our price point. We know where we want to go. And now everybody in the world is knocking at the door because they're a marketing professional. They've got the SEO. They've got the web content. They can override Facebook and Twitter and all the social media. And guess what? Guidelines don't matter. How am I going to trust that, track that, and where's my ROI?
So this comes down to, once again, your research skills. You're going to want to go to as many of these companies, these consultants as possible and see what their offering is. After you see a couple of them, you'll start to see which ones are cookie cutter and which ones are actually putting forth effort into whatever roadmap or whatever it is they're making for you. And again, this comes down to what is the reputation of the company? Who else have they worked with? Are you looking at the blog content that they've made for someone else? Are they breaking the rules that they say they themselves would never, do in terms of the posting cadence and all of these other things? Are they consistent or not? Those are all things to look at. I can tell you, you really need to do the due diligence. Otherwise, you will get your bones picked clean in this industry. There are a lot of, I hate to say it, bad actors or unscrupulous companies that are just really looking for a paycheck and do not have your best interests in mind. So really just taking that time to really put all the effort into that due diligence step is very important.
I mean, if you guys know Select CBD, that was out of California. They were purchased by Cura and then Cura Leaf, and they've gone through all this stuff, but they ended up having to rebrand to Social CBD. They ended up getting sued. They had an in-house counsel, and they still were making claims on Twitter. So having the right hand and the left hand really talking to each other, like having in-house counsel and making sure that your marketing team knows how not to get you banned from social media, because once you're banned, you have a target on your back. And the number one form of branding, at least in our space or place for branding, happens on Instagram. A little on LinkedIn, a little on maybe on Facebook, but not really. It's majority on Insta, and they're very, very sensitive. And they'll shadow ban you, and then none of that stuff comes up. So I think that that's really important, because someone, like she's saying, like a really a doughy-eyed marketing person can take your entire company down with a post.
Yeah, that is the best point I think I've heard all day. And that's, first of all, make sure they've worked in CBD. Mm-hmm. And anybody who says they can get you on Facebook, get you on, do not do it. Mm-mm. To Luna's point, once you're banned for life. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Amazon. Don't try to get around. Don't try to get cute. There's companies who they've reskinned their whole website, removed CBD from the nomenclature. But the problem is, for consumers, that's disingenuous, because then it's just hemp oil. Well, what's hemp oil? What's the difference between hemp oil and CBD? So, be very careful about consultants. I think I get 5 to 10 a day inbound on LinkedIn asking me, they can improve SEO and do this and do that. But
Same.
Yeah, you have to do your diligence. And anybody who promises you the world is a liar.
Particularly in the digital media space.
Identifying the go-to-market strategy and the demographics of the target audience is key to the success of any brand, and brand loyalty is the result of strategic marketing, right? You want your consumer to come back to you over and over and over again. You don't want them captured or stolen by another brand. What are some of the tried and true channels that have been used in your experience to achieve the end goal? And how has loyalty been measured? Is there a difference in approach between shelf space and online space? And what needs to be considered in both instances?
It's like 8 questions in there.
Well, kind of, but they kind of come together. So let me kind of break it down for you. I want brand loyalty. I want my consumer to come back time and time and time again. My consumer is going to a shelf, and my consumer is going to an online portal. So how do I define the strategies of finding those consumers through both channels, right? Because in today's world of COVID, I can't just go try it on anymore, okay? And with regard to that, what do we have to consider in reaching those targets from each channel?
Yeah, so the consumer experience, how to keep them coming back, the most obvious thing is the experience they have in the store. Do you have good customer service? You can look at a Google review of any dispensary and you can sort by highest or lowest rating. I always look at lowest because usually people are very upset or somewhat telling the truth, and you can get a feel for kind of what was said about them. I totally just blanked here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, just like having the loyalty and the customer service. And it's funny because I was thinking about customer service from the loyalty side of once you're dealing with them and they're already in the pipeline, if you've dealt with their questions or whatever, they'll come back to you too. So customer service is
customer
a theme.
service, and then the loyalty. A lot of rewards programs are a good way to get people coming back over and over again. So offering something like that, or like industry discounts, if you know there are a lot of people in town for a show, it's a good way to have people, coming and spreading word of mouth about you. So yeah, I'll let someone else jump on.
No, I think you're spot on.
I think also just creative promotions, giveaways, influencer marketing programs. I know they're annoying as hell, but they work. I think that just bringing life, like restoring the hippie vans, anything that brings, as an educator, it's like when you're taught, if anyone saw John McKay's presentation this morning, raise your hand if you were here for the early keynote, all of you slackers. It was so cool. He had this, we call it realia. When you physically have something in your hand, like you're saying, you can't go to the store and try it on. He had actual molecule, he was like throwing them around the room, and it was so engaging and so, people learn better when they can see, and people buy with their eyes. And how do you see it? If you're not going into the store and trying it on, and you're not selling online, you have to sell it online somehow, right? You're selling the lifestyle. So like for us in Venice, our whole brand is we sell cool. We're Cali cool. We've been in the cannabis industry forever. The surfer culture, the laid back culture, that's something that we really lean into, like a little bit West Coast vibe. We all have like our plug chains that represents the traditional market of being the plug and distributing, and it harkens to something that people can latch onto. I think the reason why it's so funny that you say that no one can name a CBD brand. And even being in the cannabis industry, I really can't name any that, other than going to these shows in the past few months, I'm like, oh yeah, but it's innocuous. There's no teeth. And I think that if you do something that leans into something really hardcore, and we want to target soccer moms who are getting their hair done at hair salons. We literally want like a finishing product that's CBD for the hair or whatever.
That's my brand.
Lean in, smart, yeah. Lean into that. Have brand ambassadors or affiliate programs is another thing, right? Like he's saying, if people are coming to town or things are going on, work with your retailers and say, how can we co-brand? Because you have people that we don't have access to. We have people that you don't have access to. We're a brand. You're a retail outlet. Let's promote in some cool way where we go on like a live takeover where, the shop owner takes over the brand's live, or the opposite. So we're in the cannabis industry. We love working together. A rising tide raises all boats. And, like we said, Rocco said in the last one, if someone makes a big misstep, we all go down. So we're all intrinsically motivated to have a highly sophisticated, polished approach to this stuff. So reach out to, also just copy other people's stuff. If you see someone that's doing something well, or ask the shop owner, what's your two best-selling brands? What are they doing to support you? Are they sending samples? Are they doing video trainings with your staff? Are they incentivizing your staff? Are they featuring staff member of the month on their brand? Like, why would I work? When you're in a partnership with someone, you're selling yourself as a partner. What am I going to bring to you? Just like a date, right? So I think that's kind of what you have to say, when you're vetting partners, because it's good. Like, he said earlier about in the early time, you don't know who to do business with and you just want to say yes to everyone. But once you start noticing that when you invest more into the ones that have more marketing power and more support on their side, the less work you have to do.
Yeah, I'd add to that. When you're building out your whole marketing plan, you need to have a plan for DTC and
Yes.
for retail, and you have to know how they fit together. And the mistake a lot of brands are making right now is they love the DTC sales because it's a higher revenue proposition, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not fair to the retailer. And so either you have to differentiate product-wise, where you have some products on shelf, some products online. And if you think about retail in general, I mean, the only stores that are selling high-ticket items are the independent CBD stores. Now, once FDA approves, it goes full into food, drug, mass, right? You don't see products over $40 in CVS, Walgreens. Costco's and BJ's are an exception, but for the most part, so you're building out your program so that you capture them at retail, and then they come back when you upsell them online.
And you'll sell. You have an 8,000 milligram product that clearly is an online sales initiative. It has opportunity to be, well, you're pricing it down at a rate where it actually could. But the key to mass retail is it's unfortunately it's just price. Mm-hmm. Price and packaging, and then you can sell a higher milligram product, a more sophisticated product, a higher price point product online, but to track that to attract that customer, we're making a gummy product right now. It's only going to be 2 gummies to the package because it can sell at $1.49. Someone will try it. Someone will then buy the 10-unit gummy package, and then someone might buy another higher end product line that we can't even get into the store because it's $49.99 at retail. But so you can design your product set to take consumer flow from the retail environment and transition them to online sales as well, where you can get higher price points and bigger margins.
Yeah, we actually have like a tiered model where we actually have 3 pricing models. We have, so for the wand, which the last CBD Expo, we won the John McKay Award for the best scientific advancement. We have it over at booth 33 if you guys want to check it out. It's basically just an induction heating device that helps dab without a torch. And MSRP is for $169.99. We wholesale it to brick and mortar, head shops for $90. But then we have a distributor price because everyone's like, yeah, but why would I? So like we're talking to Green Lane, we're talking to Windship, we're talking to all the major distributors that carry like the Dipper and the Volcano and all these other basically cannabis adjacent devices in the ancillary space. And they're like, the same thing with TJ Maxx. It's like, you can't just do something over here. Like, we're all in bed together now. What you do over there impacts me. It's like being in a polyamorous relationship. It's like, yeah, you can see other people, but keep it safe. I don't want you bringing anything home. It's the same thing with branding. It's like, you want to know that there's some space being held for your brand values and what's going on with that. And also that you're not undercutting someone who's a major player. So we'll give them $59.99 for the distributor price if they order a certain amount. And then there's other like contracts around exclusivity agreements and MOQs and things like that to further incentivize that kind of tiered approach to everyone's got a different ability to grow with you. And you also have all these different revenue streams because yeah, we can sell it e-commerce on our website, but we also want to incentivize, like I was talking about earlier, the partnerships. You want people to feel like you're doing them a favor, not just an outlet for their product. There's been a lot of conversations where we've had to lower our prices because of some of these distributors saying we can't make a margin on that. We don't want to compete. Like we've had many, many high-level conversations where we've had to really dial back and redo our structure based on just what the market was asking for. Some of these big players that are like, we want everyone to get a piece, but we're still the big boys. Like we got to get some volume discounts. So there's something else to think about if you want to scale really large.
So there's a panel later, I think I'm moderating, I'm uncertain at this point, that will touch on FDA content, what you can and cannot say. And if you were sitting on this hoping for some of that, I would recommend that you look at the schedule and sit in on that. At this point, I would like to open this up to any questions that we might have sitting in the audience. And I think my microphone runner is on the way. Anybody? Here she comes.
Also, never make marketing moves without your sales team. As a biz dev person, it's really rough when people are like printing materials that the sales team didn't look over. Like that's another thing. Always have your sales team QA, make sure that the content and the tone and the purpose are aligned to what sales needs. Don't just do your own thing because it looks cute.
Hey guys, I'm curious, with last year with COVID and like moving into a post-COVID world, retail has definitely been affected. And I'm curious how much of it is like, there's a lot of fear mongering about how retail it's just taking this huge hit and it's not going to come back. And I'm curious from your perspective, what you're seeing for, is it making a comeback? Is it going to, be to the level it was before? And then also, do you think that impacts how much companies should spend time on online versus in-person retail?
I'd love to field that question. How much shampoo do you buy online?
0.
How much conditioner do you buy online? How many vitamins do you buy online? At the end of the day, CBD sits in the internal external analgesics section in the health and beauty category, which at some point will live in line at Kroger's, Albertsons, fill in the blank. Once it goes full mass retail, I believe retail is the future of CBD because that's the only way you're going to get people into the category. Hoping they come to your website, like the CAC doesn't work out. You can't buy enough customers to come to your one website direct. You have to hit them where they're at, which means selling it I'm not saying you should buy tincture at Kohl's, right? But where it should exist is retail, specifically in the health and beauty section, and it's going to be at Walmart, it's going to be at Target. That's where those products are sold. I mean, will there be a component online? Absolutely. But to my point earlier, you have different product sets that sell online than you have in stores. And to Luna's point, your marketing, retail marketing is very different than consumer marketing. You've got sell in and sell through. Mm-hmm. And so the challenge is creating a product set that can sit at retail, that also can sit online, where you have a cohesive marketing message that isn't just buy my crap.
The sheer volume that these retailers generate is staggering. Once you actually have a product that hits, we had one in Germany that we were selling 1,000 a month, maybe online. We hit the DM retail shelves, which were it was just a subset of their shelves, but they're like the Walgreens of Germany and somewhat throughout Europe. It became 14,000 a week, just from one product sitting down in the bottom corner of a retail shelf, not well promoted, not people were searching it out because it was one of the first products to hit the shelf at CBD. But the volume that those mass retailers do is staggering.
Yeah, there was like organic panties that were sold, organic cotton panties that were sold at Target like 6 or 7 years ago, and it instantly became the most widely sold organic cotton product ever. It was one SKU just because of the distro power.
Yeah, I mean, there's 20,000 independent pharmacies alone in this country. If you do your average of one SKU per store per week, you have 4 SKUs in, right? You can start extrapolating the math out. That's why to me, it's more efficient to go retail. It's also from a branding perspective, then your messaging isn't direct response, come to my website and buy, which is 2 steps. It's when you happen to pass me in the store, you're going to pick me up because you saw me or you heard me on Jillian Michaels or some other location.
Also, yeah, it's as we know in sales, like any touch points are good. So the more physical that you can have, especially now that things are opening back up, I think to your point about buying vitamins, like I used to work, like one of my college jobs was working in the natural food section, or like the natural food store, but like that wellness section, and people would come in and spend hours. I mean, the consulting that you're doing, they really, even if they're just bringing it to the counter and asking someone behind the counter, maybe they got a little pamphlet. They were like, yeah, people come in and buy it for sleep. Even just like the flippant, non-educated, just been exposed to it person knows more than 90% of the people in that person's life. And just having that little bit of like reassurance and recognition and acknowledgement of like, I need this thing and you're acknowledging that this is okay, versus just being online alone in the room being like, should I do it? Like, I think that human interaction is something that we crave and need, especially when we're leaning into something that we haven't done before. And coming from another panel on psychedelics, we're very lucky in CBD. Even coming from, I'm wearing my THC hat and psychedelics hat when I say this, like, we're really lucky in CBD to be able to market, sell, and brand the way that we do. Like, just appreciate that, because there's no way that psychedelics are ever, and because it's non-psychoactive, because it's not perceived as a threat the way that Delta 8, Delta 9, and psychedelics are, as these major intoxicants that are gonna have to be regulated in this incredible way. Like, we need to regulate it as far as making sure it's safe, but you don't need to buy CBD from behind a counter the way that you need to get carded for tobacco and alcohol, right? So I think that there's like this gratitude, and really like, run with it, you guys. If you are in the CBD space, you're unhindered by so many more things than the rest of these adjacent medicines are, because it's not perceived as a threat. So just like rock that, like really fully lean into that. I don't know how else to say it, because I feel like, I don't know if people understand how difficult it is to be heavily regulated. So get it while you can and be a good actor. Like we were talking on the last panel, reputation is everything. Getting those COAs, making sure that everything you're working with is clean and super high vibe, is going to help you in the long run. Because if you're talking about creating lifetime customers that are coming back over and over, there's plenty of fly-by-night CBD companies that pop up and go away. That's why no one remembers them, because they're total shell companies. They're fly-by-night, turn and burn, super capitalistic, materialistic, consumer focused, like just quick buck. And so the ones that continue to brand, that have the physician stamp, that kind of, work with bigger mass retailers, that's just naturally, intrinsically, people are going to understand, okay, these are real players that are in it for the long run. They're not just trying to get my business and run. They respond to my emails. They have a brand ambassador doing a pop-up every Sunday at the new health food store and giving out samples. Like that's how I built Jetty Extracts to a multi-million-dollar company, was through literally demos, patient activation days or whatever we would call them. Just a little bit of education, 3 hours a week in these dispensaries, and we were educating the bud tenders would overhear me giving the pitch, and by the end of it, they'd be like, it helps this, this, and this, and these are the strains we have. Like I was in kind of by osmosis training the retail staff by talking to the consumer. I don't know if that's necessarily happening online.
The other thing I'd add to that, and I don't mean to drag on, when you're creating a company, keep the end in mind. What is your exit strategy? Do you have one? Are you creating a lifestyle business? Or are you trying to create a company to get acquired? If you're trying to create a company to get acquired, they look at two multiples. The first one being points of distribution. You can always buy more customers online, but that distribution is key for valuation. And so there's a difference between digitally native and like you've got X number of consumers. Those consumers can go away. But if you're in stores and you have that retail SKU velocity, you have much higher value.
It's staying power.
Any other questions?
That's a good point.
Okay. You can approach any one of these panelists. You'll find them on the floor. You'll find them up here, closing this. The What You Can and Cannot Say panel is tomorrow afternoon. Check the schedule. It'll be here in panel room B. It is key to your branding and staying out of the way of the FDA and the FTC.